broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
What is up?
How we doing?
What's going on? This is episode 81, Drunk on Broad, Drunk on the Fightins tonight. Listen, we got we're partnered up with Belly Up Sports, so you can find all of our stuff over there. But we got Jay back in the saddle. Jay, you just got done talking a little shredding, a little rock and roll here, and now we're talking baseball. And then we got a special guest. So Jay, go ahead, and then we'll introduce our guest.
Oh no, introduce the guest.
All right. So listen, I'll just give what I know, right? This is Vince from the Fan Lot from the show on Old City Sports. We've partnered obviously with them on a bunch of shows on our Drunk on Ice show. But Vince, tell the people what they're about to hear.
Well, I don't know how to filter myself, and I'm very, very strongly opinionated, especially when our players are not doing well. But I praise them when they're doing good.
Listen,
right up my alley. Then
we keep it real.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with criticizing when they deserve it. So
that's the one thing is you watch the actual television and are like, I got something I want to say, but I can't say it. It's like because you're on fucking TV. But I'm gonna give it to you real and tell you how it actually is.
I like
most definitely. Guy. Listen, if there's anything, right, Vince, the I told you, right, we have a whole section at the end of every show, Jay, and Rich has got the fuck you list. So the kids are in bed. We're all good here, but we got a lot of good stuff. Now, listen, I put some stuff out on social media today. We have a super, super special announcement that we are incredibly excited about. I'm not going to hold it in. I can't hold it in. I've been kind of sitting on this kind of all day long here. We are about to debut something that is going to allow our fans to be able to interact with us on the show, be able to have their voice, maybe be part of the show. We are about to debut the Broad Street Line. The Broad Street Line is designed for fans to be able to call up, get that in-game reaction, post-game reaction. We want to hear the anger, the happiness, the madness, the frustration. We want to hear it all. And we want you to call and leave a message. We want you to call I'm going to give you the number. We're going to call 267-405-3062. Put that number in your phone. Put it in there as the Drunk on Broad Street Line. And anytime you're pissed, angry, mad, happy, excited about your Philly sports teams, I want you to call up. I want you to leave a message. With any kind of emotion, you already, if you've listened to the first 5 minutes, you've already heard a bunch of expletives. So we're not going to bleep anything out. You're getting it raw. But we want to hear everything that you got to say with all the emotion. I couldn't be happier to have this as part of it. Listen, gentlemen, what would be your thoughts as far as if you were calling up a fan line right now?
Your name after the tone, and Google Voice will try to connect you.
Hey, this is Jason Voorhees from Drunk on Broad.
Stop.
Just fucking messing around. I just thought I would try to call ourselves and leave a message.
Oh, Jay, we can't call ourselves. We got to leave it open for the fans.
Well, we're probably going to have to call you live during a show one day because we do plan on doing a live game. But
okay,
I'm pretty sure between me and my fiance, we could give you a pretty good voicemail if the team's doing bad. But we'll give you a real good one when we have one of those light up 18-4 games.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Listen, Vince, we'll let you take the lead. Tell us where you are in terms of this team right now, because right? We had that we sent the team out West Coast. They had a bunch of late night games, and it seems like they kind of sleptwalked through that whole West Coast trip.
Yeah.
And then they come back. They take all but one game from the Marlins. Now they're playing the Nationals. Just give me a sense of where you are on this team right now.
I'm happy with the team because they have, they got Castellanos. He's injured again. We don't have our ace with Wheeler, and they're holding themselves to get into the playoffs. And I look at this whole season as the team just needs to give me one thing. I need them to get into the playoffs. If you show me you can get into the playoffs, that's good. That means that next year, even if we get knocked out in the first round, that means next year when we come into this, we can adjust and find the players we need, which is going to be our bullpen. It's going to be our pitching, that they can get farther than the first round, and they can knock it out of the park and give us that World Series that we've been waiting for since 2008.
Right. Jay, talk to me. Talk to me about this team where you are right now.
If I had to use a 2-word sentence to describe where I'm at, cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
I don't try to get, nor have I tried to get too high or too low this season. I think you've seen that with my takes. I think you've seen that with my shows that I've done with you and, other shows that I've been on. I think this team, I agree. I think I'm excited about the young kids. I'm excited that Alec Boehm has kind of come into his own. I'm excited to see Bryson Stott, producing at a better level, obviously, than he was early in the year. I'm actually excited for this team's future. I do agree. I think we do need some work still with the starting pitching and the bullpen. I know there was that hot rumor going around that, Trey Turner, would be, possibly interested in coming to the Phillies. Listen, I like our offense, but I do think we are missing that kind of player, a player that can provide, obviously speed and average, along with, we have a ton of guys that are going to hit for power. We have a ton of guys that kind of carry the OPS moniker, but we don't have that guy we don't have a leadoff hitter. We really don't.
Well,
Kyle Schwarber to me is not a leadoff hitter. And that's one thing I've been kind of pounding the drum about for a while now, that I wish. That's the one thing I'm a little annoyed with Rob Thompson about. And listen, I haven't really said much criticism towards Rob, and I think rightfully so. I think the guy deserves to be praised for what he was able to do and kind of getting us out of the doldrums that we were under Girardi. But I think the one thing I'm still a little skeptical about Thompson is that he doesn't pull triggers fast enough. Like Rhys Hoskins still in the number 2 hole. And we've all saw how, Hoskins is one of them streaky type players. But when guys aren't producing, you shouldn't be afraid to move them in and out of the lineup. Yes, to a certain extent, you should be patient, but I think we've been patient long enough. And when your lineup is stagnant, you need to shock the system.
Right. Yeah, no, listen, I completely agree in terms of I think to go back to something, Jay, you were talking about in terms of the Trey Turner stuff. The Trey Turner piece, I think, would be important at some point because it fills a couple roles, right? It gives you that leadoff guy that's going to set the table. It also allows you to put a guy that's young in that spot every day that you don't have to worry about who's going to play that. I think that then slots Stott in at second, right? So now you're building that core up the middle, which creates a really strong base for this team. I think Marsh is going to be a guy that's right, a guy that's young, that's under control, that you can pencil in every day. And with the other guys that they have in this lineup, with Harper and Schwarber and Castellanos, and when those guys are healthy and those guys are in the middle of your lineup, those other guys don't have to be world beaters, right? They just have to fill that role. So right now, I think that, to go back to something that both of you guys have touched on, right? Those injuries have not helped them, right? Castellanos having the oblique strain, Wheeler going out with the forearm tendonitis. Sir Anthony Dominguez has the tricep, soreness. Corey Knebel is out, right? They lost a lot of key pieces that helped them get to where they are earlier on in the season, right? So now you're going to have to start to look for other guys to kind of fill in that role, right? Brogdon is a guy who comes to mind, who's a guy that like needs to step up and fill in one of those roles. That's going to be the shoes are going to be a little bit bigger than the shoes he was wearing before.
Brogdon needs to really figure out what he's doing, because
agreed. Absolutely.
I've seen this kid come in and literally close the game. I'm going to kill my dog. I'm sorry.
Please stop.
But I've seen him come in and literally just dominate a lineup, closing a game out. And then I've seen him come in and it's ball strike. And it's like, how can you be good on Tuesday, but I bring you in on Thursday and I see this shit? Real quick, Trey Turner, if it is plausible for them to get him, they should, because loading up with people that can steal bases for this team is something that the Phillies, and I don't know if you've seen this, but we talked about it prior, and I was like, they're not stealing bases, and that is what is really dimming.
It's hurting them.
Yeah, because they're not. The pitcher can just focus on home plate. He doesn't have to worry, which you got somebody like JT that is literally almost perfect at stealing bases. And then, Stote stealing bases, Segura, even Sosa stealing bases. And they're not. Like, make that pitcher work. Take his eye from home plate and make him focus on first. Make him focus on you on second base, especially. And you're going to see things. And that's something that Trey Turner can definitely bring to this team. And I would love
a great point.
But
go ahead, Jay.
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. I think, like I said, I've been trying to be patient this year because I understand that this team's not necessarily, they're not ready to contend for a World Series. If you look at this team compared to, even the Mets and the division, I don't think we're ready, but I do think it's a big deal to make the playoffs because, as you mentioned, once you get there, anything can happen.
Right.
And I look back to that 2007 Phillies team that made the playoffs, and I know they lost in 3 games to Colorado, but that made that next year's team hungry. And that's basically where the World Series started, because it was that hunger of making the playoffs, but, and kind of getting that valuable experience that this team has not had since 2011. And quite a few of these players, I mean, yes, Kyle Schwarber has won a World Series, but you have guys like, obviously, Rhys Hoskins, Alec Boehm, JT, Segura, Stott, pretty much their whole lineup, besides Schwarber, haven't even made the playoffs. So you really would get a valuable experience to make the playoffs this year. And, yes, the roster is good on paper, but I talk about how it was constructed with a bunch of guys that are just like super streaky. And we don't have that consistent bat in the lineup. We do. It's Bryce Harper, but obviously he's not playing tonight. Right. But you need more than just one guy. And, unfortunately, Harper, yes, coming back, in September, everyone had thoughts of like, oh my God, he's going to come back and he's going to be the savior. But you got to remember the guy's been out for, close to 2 months. Like, sometimes it takes a while to kind of get back in a rhythm. And I know, it was easy, like, to get excited when they brought him back and he did his rehab stint and he hit the 2 home runs and he had those 2 big games. But don't forget, that's the minor leagues. And like I said, it was a 1 game, 2 games. Once you start coming back, you got to get in a rhythm. And he's still hitting, but he's not Bryce Harper right now. He's not. And
no, but Jay, to be honest, I don't know if it was realistic to ask him to step right back in after having the injury that he did.
No, it wasn't. I'm just talking about fans need to temper their expectations, because I think a lot of people out there had this false hope that Bryce Harper was going to come back and all of a sudden just be this world beater again. And that's not how it works when somebody comes back from that kind of an injury. It just doesn't.
No, you're right. And Jay, go ahead, Vince.
My bad, man. I think he came back premature. I think he seen, the playoffs is on the line. I think at the time we're holding the 3rd playoff wild card. Mm-hmm. And he came back in hopes, and I think he should have at least spent maybe like 1 more series down in the minors, and I think his bat would have been correct. And also, I mean, he's obviously feeling some type of pain compared, from what we seen yesterday. He was definitely injured, but battled through it. I think he should have stayed in the minors at least 1 more series and then came up, and I think his bat would have been a lot hotter. But with that being said, he is the MV3. And I mean, I bashed him on our pregame, but that's only because I feel like you have to be bashed to be able to turn your bat around. If you're not getting made fun of, you're not going to try and fix nothing. But he is very good at turning that bat around and getting hot again. I mean, you've seen him do it time and time again. And I mean, you've seen it when he got pegged in the face. He came back, wasn't batting all too good, and then boom, here he is. Right.
Yeah, and listen, I'm sure it would not surprise any of us. We wouldn't be, rewriting the history books if we didn't expect him to at some point start to contribute on a massive way, right? As the games start to have and carry more importance, right? Mm-hmm. And, the fact that I think, Jay, and to tie it back together with what you were talking about, this team making the playoffs with the guys that it has on its roster is going to be so important moving forward. Maybe not just for this year, but for the next couple of years, because of the young nucleus that they have. This team being in the playoffs this year, even if it's a 1st-round exit, I think just being in those games that matter, being in games where every pitch, every at-bat, every play in the field, everything carries such weight, I think is going to be incredibly important for this team as it moves forward, because you look at, to me, all it takes is like you were saying, Jay, just being in the group that's playing in the playoffs, anything can happen, right? And go back to, it's a really sore subject in this town, right? But October of 2011, right, when the Phillies had the best team in baseball, and they play a 5-game series against the Cardinals, right? And they end up losing Game 5 in a game which Roy Halladay's pitching, right? And he gives up 1 run in the 1st inning. That team had World Series written all over it. So as important as it is to just be in and just play the games, I think it's more important to be in, because in any sport, baseball, where you're going to be in that dance, it really truly gives everybody that opportunity to be able to beat a team in advance. And would it not be more prophetic if this year, where if they play a team like the Mets that has demolished them and really done whatever they wanted to all season long, would it not be truly prophetic to play them in the playoffs and be able to bounce them in the 1st round?
I'd love it, dude.
Right.
I would love to play the Mets the 1st round, because when you go up against somebody that thinks they got your number and then you turn it around and just beat the brakes off them, that's just amazing. And they're good on paper, is what I'll give them. They do play good baseball, but they can't carry the weight that comes with it, and that's why their career going into the playoffs, they go in as a good team, but they get knocked out in the first, second round, and they don't make it. So when I look at the Mets, I'm just like, I'm going off history, and history repeats itself. We play them. I think if it's in that series, we take them. And DeGrom is on a pitch count. He can't go more than 5 innings before they play.
Right, and Scherzer's now. He's not. He's. I mean, the way that they're phrasing it is, it seems very strategic in terms of. It seems more like rest than it does injury, but I would love nothing more than to face them, and to look. You're at this point, you're 2.5 games up on Milwaukee for that last wild card spot. Milwaukee's losing tonight. The Phillies are winning tonight, right? That could be 3.5 by the end of the night. They're really in a good position to really start to put teams away, where they can start to look at that magic number and really, like, it's a shame that they didn't take advantage of the games that they played out west, because they really, if they had even played 500, right, if they had split both those series, they would have put even more distance between them and Milwaukee.
I think the going from Arizona to
San Fran,
my bad, is different than when I think earlier in the season we played the Mariners, and then we went and played the Dodgers. So we were already in that time zone, and I think the time zone might have been what really fucked them up during it. Was that
could have been,
not to make excuses, they lost purely, but they also showed some weakness, while they were there, especially in San Fran. But I think if a playoff atmosphere where they're going to actually be there prior to the series starting, I think it'd be a lot different. Yeah,
and listen, and the funky thing about the playoffs this year, right? Especially with the team that's in that if they are a team that is playing in that first round, right? That 3-game series, which I like a whole lot better than that 1-game play-in.
Yeah,
to me, that was one of the stupidest things that MLB ever did, because you play 162 games to then have 1 game determine whether or not you continue on in the playoffs. So I'm glad that they got rid of that. But caveat is that now you have all 3 of those games. That 3-game series is all being played at the higher seed. So listen, I would love nothing more than to be able to go into Queens and be able to take them down. And Jay, your boy Aaron with his Mets fandom, I'm sure he's reveling in the fact that they were, that they're in the position that they're in.
I mean, he deserves it. He's been a long suffering fan. I mean, the Mets, let's face it, in 2015, I believe they went to the World Series, but other than, I believe, 18, only those 2 years in the last decade, they've made the playoffs. So they obviously, as mentioned, they'll make the playoffs, but they struggle when they get in. I do think that this team is a little different than years prior because, as I said, they play a really good brand of baseball. They play good defense. They obviously have great pitching. I get it. DeGrom is on a pitch count, but he's still great. They have one of the best closers in baseball. I mean, Diaz has more strikeouts than 75% of starters, which is insane for a closer. But, you know, like I said, once you get in, it's any given game. Anything can happen. And if Wheeler is healthy, that's the kicker, because I'm still a little leery about it. I know they're saying he's going to be healthy, but when any pitcher of his caliber has an arm injury with the history he's had in his past of injury history with his arm, I get a little nervous because you're going to need Wheeler in the playoffs. I mean,
you are, yeah. Oh yeah.
You can't expect that you're going to get through with just Nola and a bunch of guys. You need Wheeler. If you have Wheeler healthy, Wheeler and Nola can go up pretty much against any rotation, and I would feel confident in that scenario. The only unconfidence or inconfidence that I have in this team is the ability to be consistent with their bats, and that starts and ends with your plate discipline, and that's where they've really dropped the ball lately. And as mentioned, they're not stealing bases. They're not doing what they were doing earlier in the year. They're not having good at bats. They're going up there with no plan, and they just swing at anything. And that's why some of these pitchers that you would think, oh my God, we should be able to kill this guy, they're able to have success against the Phillies because the Phillies go up there with no plan.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm a little bit kind of, I don't want to say annoyed, but that fault to me, that it begins and ends with your manager, and he needs to really, you know, set the tone as far as what he's asking from these guys and holding them accountable. And if they're having bad at bats, it needs to be addressed. And, you know, that's kind of where I get with the team. I just get frustrated that their offense is still, you know, what are we, 145 games in? It's still just very inconsistent. You know, one night 14 runs, the next night 3. Then they get shut out. It's so inconsistent that it's hard to get any kind of rhythm. And, you know, that's when it becomes imperative that your starting pitchers, you know, go 6 or 7 innings, because if you're not getting good, you know, games from your starters, and you're not hitting, there's only a fine line between a win and a loss.
Yeah, and like that the game last night, right? That inconsistency allows that game to slip away, right? So Vince, do me a favor, look ahead at the next 6 games and talk about how important it is for them with these. They got 3 coming up in Washington, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they're off Monday, and then they play Miami Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those 6 games, because behind those 6 games, you're talking about you're going 3 at Atlanta, you play 2 Toronto at home, and then you play 4 at Atlanta.
I don't respect the Toronto Blue Jays, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
So I think if I remember correctly, we have Washington at home right now.
Right.
All right. Then we should be going to Miami.
For 3.
Then we go to Atlanta.
Correct.
And then, if I remember correctly, it should be the Blue Jays.
And then they play 2 at home against the Blue Jays, and then 4 against Atlanta.
Yeah. I think the Toronto Blue Jays forgot that in America we're allowed to have our full baseball team. They're not special. I seen who was it? Was it the Reds? They had 17 players that could not go. And they're acting like there's something special. Like they had to bring up their fucking minor league players to come play you because you have a stupid restriction. This team
you go ahead. No, you're good.
Is going to get smoked on when they come to Philadelphia. We're out for vengeance. What they did to us when we went there, and I think we were only missing about 3 or 4 players, but they were important 3 or 4 players. You know, you had JT, you had Alec Boehm. Look at Alec Boehm right now. I mean, the kid's lighting it up.
Completely different player.
Yeah, completely. Dude,
Talk about that for a second, because that moment, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, that moment where he owns I fucking hate this place.
Yep.
Right? But he never walked it back. He owned it. But since that moment, talk about a guy who's like flipped the switch and completely turned it around.
Mm-hmm. The one great thing, I cannot believe I'm going to say this about Philadelphia fans, is that we cheered him on after that. And what did he do? He turned his life around and was like, I'm going to produce for this city. I'm a firm believer that praise needs to be earned. It is how I am when I'm at work. It is how I am in reality. I'm going to degrade you when you do wrong. But when I tell you you're doing good, you know you fucking earned it from me. And that's what this team needs. They need somebody like me on their team telling them that they fucking suck today. So that way tomorrow when they go out there thinking about me. And when they hit the ball and they come back in and I go, you did a good job. They're going to know that they earned what they did. And it's not something like where it's like, oh, he's the MV3, so we have to cheer him on no matter what. No, tell him he fucking sucks. Tell him he is literally not in a slump. He's just not producing like he is supposed to be. And then when he does, he's going to look at you and be like, all right, I deserve that now. I hit that home run. And he's going to keep going. It's not going to be a thing to where it's like, I'm entitled to, all this awesomeness because I'm the MV3 of the MLB.
Right. Yeah, and listen, Vince, I want to touch on something because I just thought about this. Toronto was like the hot pick for a lot of people preseason before the season started as like a team that could contend to be in the running for the World Series, right? And they have had a clear advantage in all of their home games because of the vaccination status based on Canada and the United States. They're 76-60. Talk about a team like a team that had a ton of young talent and insanely underperformed.
Yeah, I didn't understand. Well, one, I'm not trying to jump off on you, but last season, I think they had to play in, I think it was down in Florida, and then they were playing in Upper New York towards the end of the season.
They were playing in Buffalo.
Yeah. I don't know why they changed that, but I think they got more credit. Maybe somebody was thinking that the vaccine mandate was going to help them in their season, but they got kind of lucky when they played us. In my eyes, during that time, we were thinking about getting rid of Girardi, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah. That was. Yeah,
I have a theory that they just swept the season. Not swept it, but they threw the season to get rid of Girardi, and then Rob comes in, and what did they do? They lit it up the whole month of June. That was just my theory. I might be wrong.
No.
You can't explain a team, playing mediocre / bad and then turning around and just lighting it up in the month of June.
I'm on it. Jay, your thoughts?
No, I think he's spot on. I don't know how or why the team is like night and day from what it was then, because it's not really any different. I think the only difference is that the players are actually enjoying playing for the manager that they're playing for now, where opposed to they obviously were miserable under Girardi. That's the only answer I can have. Like, because when you're miserable, think about how you are at your job. If you're miserable, you're not going to do a good job. That's just how that's like kind of, I don't know what's the word, cliche.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're a product of your environment, right? So if you got somebody that like Girardi, who is living off all the analytics and letting all the analytics make every decision, at some point, right, as a player, you look at that guy and go, Joe, You played in this league. You won in this league. You won rings in this league. Joe, what are you looking at? Like, what are those numbers telling you that you can't just see when you watch a guy take BP or when you see a guy in the field? Like, I think that Girardi got so horse blinder on the numbers and never saw the potential for players to put like look at the guys that have gotten chances to play every day, right? Stott is playing every day. Bohm is playing every day, right? They're like those first couple games, right? When you had some of the lineups that you had, it just makes me shake my head. The fact that like when they opened the season with Oakland, and you know on the Sunday, the end game of that series, they had guys getting rest days, and I'm going, what the fuck? Like the season's 3 days old. Like you don't need a rest day. Like it's barely April. Like it blew my mind. So like thankfully, right? Eventually they move on, right? And Rob Thompson has kind of been the guy that has been able to get these guys to not only play together, but it clicks. It looks like they're having fun. And when they've looked like they're having fun, they've played a whole lot better.
I'm kind of worried that if Girardi went farther into the season, I mean, one, we would not be where we're at right now. But
no, not at all. You're right.
His whole bullpen, I want to hold a guy. I can't let him pitch, within 3 days if he's a reliever. Which I've literally seen him have people come out and he goes 2 batters, maybe a matter of 7 pitches, and then he's like, "Well, he can't pitch for 3 days." What? What? He threw 7 balls last night at 8:00, dude. Why is he not in this game going against this guy that he can beat? And it's games where like we had an amazing lead and it gets blown because that solid reliever we had, he wanted to keep on the bench and not put him in. Or I seen him do it with JT. I remember, I think what you're talking about, it was like maybe like the 7th game of the season. JT was already off the day before, and he's like, "Well, JT, he has an off day today," and it's like he was off yesterday. Why is JT not in this game right now? But the hottest catcher in baseball, pretty much, you're gonna have him benched 2 days in a row because why? I don't think he really knew how to manage a baseball team at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum. The fact that I could have managed that Yankees team. I mean, they had everybody. I mean, not to mention they had, oh, by the way, Mariano Rivera as a closer. I mean, anybody that had that guy and that team probably would have won a World Series. So I agree with you. I think Joe Girardi was way in over his head. I mean, listen, he was a good player. He wasn't a star, but he was good in his career as a player. But as far as his management skills go, he definitely didn't have the day in and day out ability to, write a lineup. He couldn't manage the bullpen. He couldn't make what should have been easy decisions on a consistent basis. And that's ultimately what led to his demise. But, I mean, what this team's been able to do with Rob Thompson, I mean, I think the big difference is that Rob Thompson instills confidence in his players. And as I said, I sometimes think that might be he might be a little bit too confident. Like, if a guy is struggling in the lineup for an extended period of time, sometimes you got to make a change. And especially now down the stretch, like, we really do need to consistently start winning these series and keep winning these series. And, I've been saying for a while, I get it. We don't have another leadoff hitter, but Kyle Schwarber to me is not a leadoff hitter. And I know I've been criticized for saying that, but he's not. He's not. You look at the guy, he should be in the 4 or 5 hole. That's where he is. He's a power hitter. At the end of the day, your leadoff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jay.
I think it's overrated that and overstated that, oh my God, the guy walks. Okay, yeah, so does a lot of people. But, Kyle Schwarber, for as amazing as he was in June and July, he's been pretty ordinary in August. And so far in September, he's not really done anything. So, like, sooner or later, it's like, okay, yeah, we praised him. But, he deserves some criticism. He's not been playing. I mean, he's been stuck on the same home run number for what? 2 weeks? I mean, ultimately, Kyle Schwarber is a home run hitter. Okay, he's leading the Phillies in home runs. He was leading the National League at one point. That's what he is. He's a home run hitter, and he's not hitting home runs. So
I agree with you. I'm 50-50. So I like him in the one spot only because of the daycare. When the young kids come in and they get on base back in June and he was hitting home runs, he was driving them in. But that's a valuable spot at the one. So seeing him in the 5 and bringing Stote back to where he's in the one spot again, that's something I would like to see.
I think it just makes too much sense, especially going into the playoffs. Like, if you're going to tweak your lineup, now's the time to do it. I wouldn't wait until a week before the playoffs, and then all of a sudden you're going to, have these same issues, and then you're going to say, oh, well, let's make a lineup change. No, now's the time to tweak it. If you might as well.
Yeah, you don't want to readjust.
What do you really have to lose if you tweak the lineup? And I'm not talking about a major, scientific experiment. I'm talking about putting Schwarber back in the 3 or 4 hole, putting Stott up in the leadoff, and moving. I would look to get Hoskins out of that 2 hole because I just don't. Once again, I know he hit a home run tonight, but I'm not a big Hoskins guy. I've never been. And that's just me. And maybe that's me being, I don't know, in my own thoughts, but I'm just not high on Hoskins. I'm not. And I don't think he's not really producing either. Like, it's just once again, it's so inconsistent. We'll see the games where it's like, oh my God, he goes on like a weak tear where he's lighting it up. And then, here we go again. He's back to like Mr. Mediocre.
So Jay, you slot Hoskins where? For like 5, 6?
Hoskins is still a power. I mean, once he
hit
a home run, but when you're hitting these home runs and you're in the 1 and 2 hole, it's solo shots. It's 2. Now, listen, I get it. You could hit the home run in the 6th inning and have 3 men on, but they're not doing it. It's not like they're consistently hitting home runs with guys on. If you look at Schwarber and Hoskins, for the most part, it's been solo home runs.
Right, but like if like what Vince was talking about, like if those young guys, right, those daycare kids, if they're at the back of the lineup getting on base, right, if they're doing their job at the back of the lineup getting on base, then when that lineup turns around, right, and you're looking at Schwarber, Hoskins, Real Muto, Bohm, Harper, like you can throw 4, 5, 6 guys. Like
I got that, but they're not. But the thing is, they're not at the back of the end. Bohm is in the 3 hole. Stott is in the 6 hole. Like, they're not. I get what you're saying when they were down in the lineup, but they're not now. So you got what? And Muno Souza? I know he's like the hot thing now. It's like everyone's like, oh my God, Muno Souza. Yeah, if he's hitting, then let him hit. But ultimately, you got to come to a conclusion that if you want your lineup to be at its best, then you need to have guys where their strength is. To me, Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot is not a strength right now. It was a strength in July. It was a strength in June. It's not now.
All right. So between now and the end of the season, right? Give me one guy that had like I'm going to ask for 2 guys, right? 2 guys that you need to perform in order for this team to really make a serious run and put themselves in position to win a playoff series. I need a guy that's going to be on the mound, regardless of starter, back end of the bullpen, wherever, and a guy and a bat.
Now I'm going Nola and Harper.
Okay, tell me why. Like, what do you need to see out of Nola? Because you've been you've had the Nola conversations, right? So tell me what I need to see from Nola and what I need to see from Harper when we go down the stretch.
I mean, Nola's last start, he looked great again. Like that's the thing. It's just I need consistent Nola.
There you go.
I need Nola to be what he was in the last start more often than what he was prior to that, where he shit the bed. And the reason I say that is because Aaron Nola, when he's at his best, is better than we give him credit for. Like, when he's at his worst, he's not as bad as we think. But when he's at his best, we don't give him enough credit.
Okay.
He's this. He's like their offense, Aaron Nola. But look at the not on the surface metrics. Like, everyone wants to look at ERA.
Okay.
I'm talking about look at his whip, walks, hits per 9 innings. That to me is really a better tale of a pitcher that is on his game. His whip right now is still under, I believe it's 0.95. It's under 1. And he's, I believe, second or third in the National League in strikeouts. Like, Nola is still, even with the 2 bad starts, is having a very good year this year. But I need him to not do his September swoon. I need him to, continue to build on his last start. Because I think if Nola is at the top of his game going into the playoffs, then I'm confident. And the reason I said Harper, I think Harper ultimately is going to get hot. It's just only a matter of time. I mean, it's not like he's been terrible, but he is worthy. He is deserving of being criticized. And that's why I like my guy here, because he's not afraid to, I think so many people are afraid to criticize Harper because he's like the golden boy. But dude, if he's not playing well, then he deserves criticism. Just like I think Kyle Schwarber deserves criticism.
There's not a single motherfucker in this world that is not going to get criticized by me. Just to be clear.
I like it.
There we go.
Also, let's just be happy that the postseason starts in October and not September.
Yeah.
For Nola.
Truly. Now, Vince, I need a guy on a mound and a bat.
I'm gonna go with Robinson. Or is it Robertson? We brought him in for a reason. We brought him in so that way he would close games for us. So we would have Nick Nelson, we would have him, and I would say I like him later. I hate when they bring him in early, but Alvarado. Them 3 in a closing situation, but we need the guy that we just brought in to start showing up. What he's done is just come on, man. Yeah.
He's struggled lately.
Yeah. And you said what? A guy at the plate?
The guy at the plate. Give me a bat.
God. I'm gonna go if Schwarber's staying in the one spot, I'm gonna go with him because in my eyes, the first 15 pitches of a game is pretty much a simulation for the pitcher. And I know you not big on Reese, but he is very good at getting either he's very good at getting walked, and he's very good at getting that first hit. Schwarber needs to do it if he's standing in the one spot, because if you can get a hit in them first 15 pitches, especially back-to-back pitchers, they are more likely to win that game, because now that starting pitcher is readjusting his entire decision, and he's thinking about his life as he goes to throw that next ball, because he's trying to read it one way, and he's like, well, he's definitely got me on point. And then, you know, you have somebody like either, you know, Harper in the 3 spot, Boom in the 3 spot, that they know he's all flustered now, and that ball is going to go right across the plate at his, you know, right at his spot, and he's going to crack it, and it's gone. So I would say Schwarber would be if he stays in the 1 spot, but I would like to see Stott go and be the leadoff hitter.
Okay, I like it. Like the guy that I'm looking at that's got to be that's got to kind of hold that spot down is a guy I talked about a little bit earlier. Right, I'm looking at Brogdon to kind of slot in that role and really become a really essential part of that bullpen where he can lock down innings late in the game to get the game to Robertson at the plate. And it's kind of twofold why I'm gonna say this guy, but like I'm looking at Real Muto to just he's swinging a hot bat to kind of stay consistent, right? Has a home run tonight, but also with the injuries that they've had on the pitching staff, it's also twofold for him to be able to control and work that young group of pitchers to be able to groom them to be more productive. So I'm looking at Real Muto to be able to get to stay hot at the bat, but also guide that bullpen to be able to close out those games so that we don't have situations like you had last night where you lose the lead late. So, gentlemen, it's been fun. Vince, I want to your shows group. You posted something that I want to bring up that's baseball related. That we were kind of talking pre-show about the new rules, the rule changes for Major League Baseball, right? So the rule number, so that you got the pitch timer. Right, you got bigger bases and you got the shift restrictions. I'm gonna let you go first because you were a little excited about it earlier tonight.
If I run down it, I see 3 things where I just look at, and I'm like, the MLB just wants quicker games. The MLB just wants quicker games. The MLB wants quicker games, and it's because they want to produce a product that can go more than 3 hours long, and they want it to end in 2 hours so that way they make maximum amount of money off it, because there's no other reason why they would change any of this shit right here. The game runs smooth. I mean, I do agree, because even Harper's talked about it, where the ball gets thrown, it's a ball, and he goes and readjusts his gloves, and I think it's either the catcher or the umpire's like, dude, you didn't even swing. I understand that. Like, they should have just been like, yo, you can't, like, the batting count, or the 8 seconds or whatever. I kind of understand that. I don't understand the whole you can only throw to first base or second base 2 times, and the third time has to be an out per batter.
Yeah,
you're taking away the challenge.
Yeah, like when I look at to me, the bigger bases is like a whatever. That to me doesn't mean a whole lot. But like when I look at, I get why they're doing it, but like to me that to me doesn't necessarily affect the game nearly as much as like when I look at the pitch timer, right? The 15 seconds between bases when it's empty, 20 seconds with a runner on base. The hitter gets a timeout per plate appearance. They're anticipating that it might reduce the game by 26 minutes. Like, to me, like, yes, it does expedite the speed of the game, especially for those games that are 3+ hours long. But at the same time, I don't necessarily know how much that positively or negatively affects the product on the field. I don't hate when they talk about the shift restrictions. I don't hate having 2 guys on either side of second base, only for the simple fact that, like, it lends itself more back to traditional baseball, right? You don't have three guys. You're eliminating, like, if I'm a batter and I get a solid crack at the ball and I hit it, which would normally be a hit in between the second and first baseman, right? But I got the third baseman that's playing short outfield, right? And now that's an out. So the shift restriction, having two guys, I don't hate that. But to me, I don't know that any of what they're doing is really going to expedite the speed of the game and create a better product. Jay?
It's going to create injuries.
I mean,
Go to your buddy's house and take his end table and move it back 3 inches, and then watch how many times he walks into it because he's used to it being in that position.
Right.
These guys are going to be sliding at the normal spot that they slid all season, and it's going to create either hand injuries or some kind of foot injury because it's going to be a bigger base and they're going to slide into it wrong. The shift, I like that they can shift because how many ugly hits have we had this season or bunts down the third base line that nobody was there to go and try and manage anything with that ball?
I mean, you're right. Like, listen, there's strategic aspects to all of it, right? You can say that the analytics tell, that they look at the analytics and they use the predictable data to be able to see where the ball is going to go and make the adjustments based on that. And I know that, I look at that and I don't think that it makes it a better product on the field. I like the idea because you can still, with having both of those guys on either side of second base, I think you can still shift, but it's not nearly as drastic as putting 3 guys on one side of the field. Jay, you got thoughts on this before we?
Yeah, I mean, you know where I stand on. I'm old school. I'm an old guy. I'm 46. Older generation, we tend to, not like the way that the direction of the game, the direction that Major League Baseball is going. I think if you want to fix Major League Baseball, instead of making these kind of dumb rule changes, how about changing the philosophy of the game and how it's taught? How about stop preaching so much about launch angle and wanting home runs and start preaching small ball again? I think the reason that the games are so long is because there's so many walks and there's so many strikeouts and there's so many pitches and there's so many pitching changes. That's what's making these games longer. It's not the bigger bases. It's not the shift. And it's not even the pitch timer. It's just the way that the game is being played. It's just not conducive to, what comes down to people's attention span. I mean, if you have to have an attention span of like, I don't know how to say this. Like, people today have attention spans of like a gnat. You know what I'm saying? Like, attention
it's a very instant gratification.
If you're not like looking at ways that's going to make this game better and grow the game, then you're doing a disservice. And I just think these rule changes, they're trying to save face, like they're trying to make the game better, but in reality, it's making it worse. And as Vince said, it's going to cause injuries, and I don't think it's going to speed up the games. I don't. I mean, maybe it speeds it up a little bit, but you really want to fix the game, as I said, start fixing it by preaching different strategies, preaching to get back to people actually having plate discipline and not striking out all the time, trying to hit a home run every game, all the time. I mean, it really has become strikeout, boom or bust. I mean, I get it. It's fun to watch home runs, but I don't know, man. I'm old school. I like
chicks dig the long ball, Jay. Listen, gentlemen, this conversation's been great. Go ahead, Vince.
I'm sorry. Go, man.
No, you're good.
There's a huge loophole in that shift rule to where they can literally, once the ball's thrown, they can dart in the direction of where they wanted that shift to be if they want to take
Yes, you're right.
And I don't know if that opens the door to kind of like the NFL non-contact like ACL tears. I might sound stupid or crazy for it, but
yeah, you're right.
When you go and jump right and then you try and dart back left, that is how you tear an ACL. You see it with running backs in the NFL, or even, linebackers or cornerbacks. They cut one direction. When they try and cut back the other way, it's non-contact. Nobody gets hit. Nobody gets touched, but you just gone, and you're opening a door to that. So I this isn't about player safety. This whole rule change is not. They should have just left baseball as it was.
You could have, and it really wouldn't have created a ton of noticeable difference between what it is and what it could be in 2023.
Yeah, and I mean, if I had it my way, they would bring back the fact that you're allowed to, if you're running the home plate and the catcher has the ball, you get to smoke his ass and try and knock that ball out of his hands. That should come back. That will make baseball way more exciting and probably make the game a lot more faster.
Listen, it could. It very well could. It's as much as we would love to see that, and as much excitement as that would bring, because that play, obviously as we were growing up, that play was a part of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see with all the science behind all the head injuries that it would come back. But I agree. Is that play more exciting than the partially blocking the plate? Yes, 100%. Gentlemen, anything else you want to touch on with the Phils before we go into final thoughts?
They just got to make it to the first round. That's all I need to say.
Let's get to the playoffs.
Yep. There we go. All right, gentlemen, final thoughts. So, listen, Vince, for final thoughts, we normally we would share something. Doesn't have to be baseball related. It can just be life related. Any kind of final thoughts? Anything you want to touch on? Anything you want to share with the audience before we head out?
Final thoughts. I hope that the Phillies produce better, and I hope they kind of prove me wrong and they can miss the first round and they go deep. That's my final thoughts.
All right, here we go. Jay, what do you got?
I like it. My final thoughts. If you haven't, go and watch the Taylor Hawkins tribute on YouTube.
With his kid?
I am telling you, it was absolute. So, for those that don't know, obviously back in like I want to say 86, or I forget what year it was, but they had the Freddie Mercury concert, and that's well known as being one of the best shows of all time, as far as like just the energy and the crowd and just the amazing performances. Well, this was right on par with that. I mean, Taylor Hawkins is revered in not only the musical community, I mean, all walks of life. Like, the guy was just a really good dude, and it shows by the amount of people and outpouring that he had when he passed away. And this tribute show was amazing. You had Brian May from Queen. Obviously, you had the Foo Fighters, and then they brought out Taylor Hawkins' son, Shane, for a performance, and it was unbelievable, dude. I was in tears watching it. Like, the kid not only is super talented, but like to be able to play like basically his dad's tribute. I mean, that's just, I had goosebumps. So if you haven't watched it, I highly, highly suggest it.
Jay, you stole my thunder. That was what I was going to share. So like that, just seeing the kid play his father's music, like it was incredible. Listen, this was incredible. Vince, thank you so much for coming on. Vince, do me a favor before we head out. Share your stuff. Tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Well, we're on Twitter. We are The Fan Lot. We are on Facebook at Fan Lot Phillies, and we have YouTube. Apparently, we did not set it up tonight. And if you guys don't mind, anybody that shares this, it would be great. Our son, he's 7 years old, has autism. We are we're going to donate to the Eagles Foundation. So anybody that shares, has hashtag autism awareness, and at the Fan Lot Phillies or the Fan Lot on Twitter, we're going to make a donation for everybody that likes and shares it. So
do me a favor, Vince, when we head out of here, just if you can send that information over to us, we can share it. We'll be able to, put it out on our social stuff and be able to, get as much as awareness as we possibly can with that stuff. So
yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listen, we got to thank our sponsors, right? We got, they were on the screen the whole night, but Lots of Rain Luxury Watches, Team Clicks, Shocked Energy, which is now Level Up Snacks, and Streaker Sports. You can find all that information over on our link tree. Don't forget to go find our new Broad Street line fan reaction, Philly Sports Calls. We want your in-game reaction, so go find that. That information is going to be up there, 267-405-3062. Go leave a message during the game. And listen, it would not be a Philly show on this network if we did not end with Rich and Rich's Uncle Jack.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins. Said.
Should.